Coming up on KPBS Evening Edition, hundreds of customers overcharged on their water bills. We're here at Mira Mesa where a public forum is happening to get answers.
Also challenging California's gang database, the case in San Diego that raises questions about how it works.
I think I learned that I didn't have to give up because I really like persevering and human cycling.
Go ahead, join the Circus, the new study that looks at how performing with clowns and acrobats can help at-risk kids in San Diego. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. After hundreds of water customers in San Diego were overcharged on their bills, the mayor is calling for an audit to be done sooner than originally planned. People in Mira Mesa who were hit the hardest will have a chance to voice their concerns. KPBS reporter Jade Hindman joins us from the Mira Mesa Senior Center, where a public forum happens tonight. Hi, Jade.
Hey there, Ebony. Well, yeah, so that public forum is getting started around 5:30. Already people lining up, 24 people inside at least. But all of this is being put on by Councilman Chris Cate. He's actually hosting it and will be here answering some questions about how hundreds of customers were overcharged, some as much as $400 on their bill. More than 300 customers in this area were overcharged. Now Mayor Kevin Faulconer wants the city auditor to speed up and expand the audit of the city's public utilities department. The mayor says the billing problem was isolated and human error was to blame. Now, while the auditor will look into billing practices and how the mistake was made, he will also look into whether or not the city's smart meters were working. Faulconer hopes the move will restore customer confidence.
Each customer who calls with a billing concern must be heard. Every customer. Their bill will be reviewed on an individual basis to determine the cause and how to resolve it.
Now, the audit was scheduled to be completed by June. Now the completion date has been moved up to the spring. And right now you can see over my shoulder here all of the people in line here at this senior citizen center here in Mira Mesa, everyone wanting answers. They did say that checks are in the mail. Reimbursement checks are in the mail for a lot of customers who were overcharged, but they did want to reiterate that they will not be handing out any reimbursement checks out here tonight. Live in Mira Mesa, Jade Hindman, KPBS News.
A big crowd there. Thanks, Jade. A Florida man accused of carrying out a mass shooting at his former school has been formally charged with murder. Nicholas Cruz made a brief appearance in court today. He's accused of killing 17 people at a high school in South Florida, where he was recently expelled. A local sheriff's office report says Cruz confessed to being the shooter. Earlier today, President Donald Trump spoke about his plans to address the wider issue of school shootings.
Later this month, I will be meeting with the nation's governors and attorney generals. We're making our schools and our children safer will be our top priority. It is not enough to simply take actions that make us feel like we are making a difference. We must actually make that difference.
Law enforcement in Florida has not given any details about a possible motive. The Associated Press reports Cruz belonged to a white nationalist group in Florida. A vigil is happening now for the shooting victims. These photos show students, staff, and loved ones carrying candles. They're also offering prayers and messages of hope and demanding action to make their school safe. Nearly 16 years after Jahi Turner's disappearance, his stepfather is on trial for the 2-year-old's murder. Opening statement began today in the trial of Tyree Jones. The Jahi Turner case received widespread attention in 2002. The boy was never found. But Jones was arrested in North Carolina in 2016 in connection with his death. Jahi Turner was in Jones's care while his mother was on deployment. CalGang is a California database to keep track of gang members. Until recently, anyone could be added without ever knowing. But new state legislation says going forward, police cannot put someone in the database without alerting the person. KPBS reporter Claire Tragesser has details.
I'm standing outside San Diego Central Courthouse. Here, a judge will decide whether a San Diego resident should be taken out of the state's gang database. This is the second case in the state challenging CalGang. Attorney Danielle Iredale is working pro bono for Tyrone Simmons, who grew up in Southeast San Diego. She says he stopped associating with gang members 10 years ago after the birth of his daughter, but he's still in the database.
About self-definition, to Tyrone, I think it's important that he gets to define himself and that who he is not defined by the state.
Now, state law says that if there's no evidence that someone has associated with gang members for 5 years, they should be taken out of the database. But Iredale says that hasn't happened for her client, so they're going to court. The San Diego city attorney will be arguing against Simmons, and they did not respond to a request for comment. The hearing will be in early March. Claire Tragesser, KPBS News.
A vote on a bipartisan immigration bill failed today in the U.S. Senate, a setback to efforts to extend the DACA program. President Donald Trump had promised to veto the bill if it had passed. The Senate might still cast a vote on a House bill that offers a path to citizenship for people who were brought to the U.S. as children without documentation. A new policy limits the time spent by families at Friendship Park. They reunite at a space between fences along the U.S.-Mexico border in San Diego. They used to be able to visit for 4 hours on the weekend. Now they only have 30 minutes. The change happened after a surprise wedding last November. The San Diego UT says the groom's criminal record prompted questions about background checks for reunion events. California schools will be a training ground to spot signs of human trafficking. Students will receive 2 rounds of training, one in middle school and another in high school. The education will focus on labor and sex trafficking. Teachers and other school personnel will go through similar training. California has the highest number of cases reported to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. A new bike-sharing company is coming to San Diego. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says Lime Bike is hitting the streets starting today.
Lime Bike is the city's first dockless bike-sharing company. That means you can pick up these bikes and drop them off anywhere that's legal, as opposed to having to park them at a fixed docking station. The company says that's why their service is cheaper and more convenient.
Everything's very intuitive. It's all run through our mobile app.
Rides on these lime green bikes cost $1 for every half hour, a little bit more if you use one of their electric bikes or scooters. Users can locate the bikes, unlock them, and pay for rides with a smartphone. Zach Bartlett is the company's San Diego manager. He says the bikes make public transit more accessible by providing a fast way to get to the bus or trolley, something insiders call the last mile problem.
It's green, it helps the community get around. Actually, over 40% of all our rides initiate within the immediate area of a bus stop. So it's a great story to tell as far as solving that last mile problem, and that's our goal. That's what we're here to do.
Just 3 weeks ago, the San Diego City Attorney's Office issued a memo that found new bike-sharing companies could operate legally in the city. It was written at the request of San Diego City Councilman David Alvarez, who says he was impressed with how fast the city worked to get these bikes permitted.
It's not costing us any money. It's good for the community. It gives people options. It's just a win in general, and again, didn't require a lot of effort or work by the city.
Now, the bike-sharing market is heating up in San Diego. There's a rival company called OFO that plans to launch in San Diego tomorrow, and another company, Spin, that's already operating on the UCSD campus. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
A change in the weather after a few days of scattered showers. Jeff Cornish has details in tonight's forecast.
Drier and slightly warmer areas returning to the area here as we close out the week, looking ahead to Friday and Saturday. We don't expect to see any additional rain in the area, at least for the rest of the week. And we'll be warm, back into the mid-70s Friday and Saturday. But looking ahead to next week, some of the coolest air we've seen so far this winter will be marching south down the west coast, and we'll eventually see some of that around here as well, with some cool days coming by the middle of next week. But you can see there's been a little bit of extra moisture nearby. Most of this is not indicative of actual rain, though. The legitimate rain is farther east. Places like Tucson, Arizona, over an inch of rain there. No flooding. That's good news. Places like southern New Mexico and into far west Texas near El Paso. Steady, moderate rain there. But we are transitioning to a dry time. Mainly clear, 52 tonight out there. And as we look ahead, the forecast across the region tonight, 40 in Oceanside, 48 in Borrego Springs, and in Mount Laguna will fall to around 33 degrees late tonight. Friday looks great. High pressure sets up shop. It'll be milder. There will be a pretty stiff breeze late tonight and early tomorrow morning, mainly to the north. A little bit of a Santa Ana wind, but the humidity is not terribly low, so we're less concerned about fire danger with this setup. Into the day tomorrow, we're going to warm up pretty nicely. 74 into Oceanside, 73 in San Diego, 76 Borrego Springs, and in the highest elevations will be around 51 in Borrego Springs. Looking ahead to the weekend, a warm weather pattern for us, but not for long. There's a dip in the jet stream off to the north, and by Sunday, they may even see some snow at sea level up in Seattle. We'll see some colder air push south into our area as well. Here's that forecast. The coast, 74 Friday, dropping to 60 on Monday. Maybe a shower or two. We would welcome some additional rain. Inland areas fall from 78 Saturday down to 61 on Monday, and maybe a stray sprinkle or two. Mountainous areas drop into the low 40s and eventually upper 30s. A little windy out there into Monday. And our final spot here, the desert, drops into the 60s. I'm Jeff Cornish for KPBS News. Back to you, Ebony.
The push to expand San Diego State University cleared another hurdle today. More than 100,000 signatures required for a public vote have been certified by the city clerk, clearing the way for a public vote in November. The SDSU West plan involves purchasing the Mission Valley Stadium site from the city as part of a large-scale expansion. A local state assemblywoman is among those making a push for new limits on tackle football. Lorena Gonzalez-Fletcher and others plan to introduce a bill that would establish a minimum age of 12 years old. Supporters say the reforms are needed amid growing evidence that football collisions suffered by children can lead to brain problems later in life. Hollywood star Will Smith shined a light on the dangers of professional football in the movie Concussion. He played Dr. Bennett Omalu in his fight to raise awareness about traumatic brain injuries in former players. Now he's written a book for parents. It's about what they should know before letting kids play contact sports. KQED Newsroom's Thuy Vu chatted with the doctor about his research.
Well, you know, the Winter Olympics are underway. Sports are on a lot of people's minds. What should parents of children under 18 know about contact sports?
Well, it's always been my position, knowing what I know, that no child under the age of 18 should play the high-impact, high-contact sports. The big six are American football, ice hockey, mixed martial arts, boxing, wrestling, and rugby. In these games, in every play, your child suffers blows to the head, and there is no safe blow to the head. Repeated blows to the head cause brain damage. If your child plays football, even after just one season, your child has suffered irreversible, irreparable brain damage. Because the brain doesn't regenerate. The brain does not have any reasonable capacity to regenerate itself. I've looked at thousands of brain cells, of brains. I'm yet to see a brain cell that is dividing normally to form a new brain cell. Once your brain cell is damaged, that is it.
Well, you have said that it is, in your words, child abuse to let kids play football. Why?
Knowing what we know today. As a physician, every 2-3 years, I attend child abuse classes, and I must report child abuse when I see it. I'm mandated by law. Knowing what we know today. The fundamental definition of child abuse is the intentional exposure of a child to the risk of injury. Knowing today that just one concussion causes permanent brain damage. Knowing that if a child goes in to play football by 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, by 11 a.m. after he's done playing, he has suffered brain damage. Isn't that intentional exposure of a child to the risk of injury?
Where do you draw the line, though, right? Because so many sports come with some element of risk, and athletes, if they're serious about a sport, need to begin training as youths before they're 18 to become really, really good at it, especially, let's say, for example, at the Olympic level. If someone's playing ice hockey, which you identified as a dangerous sport, I mean, how do you navigate that?
You know, that is a cast of the mind that is embedded in our mentality. That may not be true. In 1957, 11 years before I was born, the American Academy of Pediatrics published a position paper in the Pennsylvania Medical Society Journal. Don't collapse if I tell you this. In 1957, American pediatricians said that no child under the age of 12 should play football, wrestling, or boxing, that these sports do not have any place in any school on the development of any child. Now, you can't join the American military, the American Armed Forces, until you're 18. Joining the American Armed Forces at 18 has no way undermine the preparedness or readiness of the United States military. So if you're a child and you start playing the high-impact, high-contact sports, maybe a child of 6 years old plays football, begins to play at 6, plays till 17, that's about 11 years. That child must have received hundreds of thousands of blows to his head. So by the time he's 18, his brain is no longer functioning optimally. So he's not playing at the level you would expect him to play. So if we could step back to think, what if we don't let children play till they are 18? They go through intensive training. With intact brains, they could take these games to levels we never, ever imagined because their brains are intact, functioning at the highest levels, have not suffered any brain damage. Think about that. So if children do not play, do not begin exposure early, by 18, they may take football to exceptional levels that we've never, ever, ever seen or imagined. That's a new way to think. That's a 21st century mentality.
You can see more of this interview on kqed.org.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the aftermath of yesterday's mass shooting at a Florida high school. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
McDonald's is promising changes to its Happy Meals that will include fewer calories, saturated fat, and sodium. The company says all Happy Meals will have 600 calories or less by 2022. This will be accomplished by reducing French fry portions and the amount of sugar in McDonald's chocolate milk. McDonald's also plans to remove the cheeseburger Happy Meal from the menu displays, although it will still be available for purchase. A life in the circus can be more than just fun and games. A new study looks at the impact of circus-focused after-school programs. As KPBS video journalist Katie Shulove shows us, programs like Fern Street Circus are helping at-risk kids.
These are not skills that normally come to mind for serious social and emotional development, but a new study released in January is changing that.
When you're ready, you can take one hand off and then the other hand. Yep, that's it.
The Weikart Center for Youth Program Quality found that Circus is having a profound impact on at-risk youth across the country.
I wouldn't think I would like it here, but now I ended up liking it. I think I learned that I didn't have to give up because, I really like persevering and unicycling.
I also like that you can meet that everyone's allowed.
Fern Street Circus is one of 8 programs included in the study. Co-founder John Hyken hoped the study would give credibility to what he's believed since starting Fern Street in 1990.
Okay, go to it.
That it's not all just fun and games.
Each of us has our success stories. The kids who have grown up and say to us, you've changed my life. And now we've got the quantitative evidence that says, yes, indeed, you do that. So it's not just testimonial, touchy-feely testimonials, but in fact, it's hard numbers. And for a lot of people, policymakers, funders, community leaders, they want to see hard data that says we make an impact.
2, 1. Up to 50 kids fill Mid-City Gym in City Heights on Tuesday and Friday evenings all year round. And it's free for a reason.
Our materials that we put out are generally in English, Spanish, and at times also Somali, and we market it to this neighborhood so that we can serve families who otherwise would not be able to afford instruction from professional artists.
We've been to the circus for 2 years.
7-year-old twins Brianna and Abigail Castellanos love the tumbling and unicycle and said they couldn't come if it wasn't free.
Because we have little bits of money.
Their mom, Tina Nauta, also sends her 10-year-old Lily to the program.
For me, I would not have been able to afford 3 kids into a program, especially like this, with everything that they do.
Third one. She said Abigail especially used to be shy, but now
they just became more social, more outgoing.
Shake it around. Shake it off if you must.
The study surveyed 112 students over a 9-month period at social circus programs aimed at helping at-risk youth. These programs outperformed other after-school programs. For example, the percentage of circus youth struggling to demonstrate self-regulatory skills dropped from 53% to only 19% over the 9-month study. Hyken wasn't surprised by the results.
Being able to work more effectively with others, with peers, and have a direct connection with adults as mentors. And all of those ricochet through the rest of how a student, a young person goes about her or his life.
Tightwire whiz Arani Ramirez wasn't sure he'd like Fern Street. Now he's helping start a circus club at Thrive Public Schools, where he's in 8th grade.
I actually made a lot of friends with communication, and also tried to help. And the more I helped, the more I became useful in this program. I did become more athletic. I did increase my enthusiasm. I guess my grades have gotten better.
Hyken says the study is the first national look at circus education.
We in Circus want to make sure that we are recognized along with other arts education offerings that happen nationwide. We are as important in terms of the impact we make as theater, dance, music, visual arts.
He hopes the study will matter to donors, so Fern Street can raise enough money to continue the after-school program free of charge indefinitely.
1, 2, 3, Fern Street Circus, my name.
Katie Shulev, KPBS News.
Bye-bye. Fans watch figure skaters spin, leap, and fly at this week's Winter Olympic Games. A new production from Cirque du Soleil offers a new frozen playground for skaters and acrobats. KPBS Arts Calendar editor Nina Guerin tells us this new production arrives in San Diego next month.
Hello, this is Nina Guerin, and I'm at Valley View Casino Center with a sneak peek at Cirque du Soleil's new show, Cristal. I'm here with the artistic director, Fabrice, and he will tell us a little bit about what we're going to see. What is Cristal? Can you explain to us?
Cristal at the show is a combination of what the company Cirque du Soleil has been good at for 30 years, which is the acrobatic world and artistic element, but we blend it with a new territories that we have not explored before, which is the territory of the ice. So we are bringing ice skaters into the world of Cirque du Soleil and vice versa. So we have a beautiful combination of acrobats and skaters. Cristal is about a young girl who feels she doesn't fit in society. She doesn't feel at home. She feels unaccepted on a playground, at school, and one evening she escaped and ran into this park and fell onto a pond. The pond ice floor break underneath her. And there's this beautiful metaphor, which is when she falls in the underwater world, she goes into facing an alter ego, which is the reflection of herself.
And can you tell us why Cirque du Soleil wanted to include ice skating?
I think Cirque du Soleil has always been trendy in many ways, want to be ahead of the game in the acrobatic and the artistic world. And I find it was a smooth transition. It was an organic transition after 30 years of exploring just the world of acrobatics to find a new element. Ice can bring her speed, a beautiful palette of déplacement on the surface. Also, I feel the color of the floor on the ice floor is a beautiful palette to project, to change the landscape. So,
and do the ice skaters also do these acrobatics?
This is something that we to respond to your question, yes. What we ask to is actually on both sides. We ask the skaters to be open to learn acrobatics and even sometimes aerial acrobatics.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cristal will be in San Diego on March 21st through the 25th at Valley View Casino Center. For KPBS Arts, I'm Nina Guerin.
Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, what's next for immigration reform after the Senate vote? We'll take a look at what could be motivating voters. And on Midday Edition, a superhero film that blends entertainment with social awareness, the star power behind Marvel's Black Panther movie. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Finally, we leave you with one more look at Cirque du Soleil Cristal. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.